It's getting a little loose. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Defense Committee. We're here to discuss the 2018-19 Defense Budget Supplement. I'd like to welcome the Minister of National Defence, the Honourable Harjit Sajjan, Deputy Minister Jody Thomas, defence officials and members of the Canadian Armed Forces. Thank you for attending. We don't have a ton of time, so I'm going to turn it right over to you, Minister. The floor is yours for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Standing Committee. It's great to be here again. Before I begin, I just want to reflect. I think all of us are reflecting on it's our Remembrance Week and how everything that we have the privilege of doing as parliamentarians, especially as part of this committee, is a direct result of the tremendous sacrifice by all our veterans from the past. So I just wanted to make that known, because I think everybody here is, in their own way, going to be reflecting on that on Remembrance Day. So I'm very pleased to be here today to present the Supplementary Estimates A for the Department of National Defence. And today I'm joined by our Deputy Minister, Jody Thomas, Shelley Bruce, Chief of the Communications Security Establishment, Lieutenant General Paul Winnick, our Vice, where are you? There you go, and many senior members of our defence team. Mr. Chair, under these supplementary estimates, we are requesting approximately $393.5 million. Of this amount, approximately $282 million relate to capital investments, which will help drive our defence policy, strong, secure, and engaged, and it will help it move it forward. This money we are seeking today will help to continue delivering on our primary commitment to our people and to all of the activities that support that goal. Strong, Secure, and Engaged provides a roadmap for all of our defence activities for over the next 2 decades, covering everything from procurement to innovation, force development to operations. It encompasses our plan for the defence of Canada in the 20 years to come. But no matter how broad this policy is, every activity we commit to undertake comes back to our single most important objective, and that's to take care of our people. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, there is nothing more important than the care and the well-being of our Canadian Armed Forces personnel and their families. When our people are well supported, our country and our values are well defended. That in turn allows us to remain capable and reliable partners to our allies. And before I outline the details of our requested funds, I would like first to highlight some of our accomplishments over the last year. This will demonstrate how the funding we are requesting builds on the great work that has already been done by our team. With respect to taking care of our people, we wasted no time in launching and delivering on as many initiatives as possible. One of our top priorities was to create a work environment free of stigma, harassment, and discrimination. An environment where all Canadian Armed Forces members feel comfortable at work, regardless of race, sexual orientation, or gender. And I'm pleased to report that we have made progress on this very important goal. Following our Prime Minister's apology to the LGBTQ2 community, in order to right this historic wrong, we began implementing the LGBTQ2 Purge Class Action Final Settlement Agreement. In the last year, we also expanded the Sexual Misconduct Response Center's service to offer 24/7 coverage from anywhere in the world. We're drawing lessons from Operation Honour and applying them in support of our civilian defence team members. And we are exploring options for extending the Sexual Misconduct Response Center's services to them as well. We have also worked tirelessly to expand services for the care of our military families. We have provided an additional $6 million per year for military family resource centres, and have also implemented virtual counselling services for families. We launched the Seamless Canada initiative to make it easier on families when they have to relocate from one province to another. We know that the Canadian Armed Forces members are at their best when they are given the tools and resources they need to succeed on operations at home and abroad. And for that reason, we have also made it a priority to give them the modern infrastructure and equipment they need to do that. We made significant long-term investments in the capabilities that our military needs to carry out current and future operations. For instance, this past August, I had the opportunity to visit Canada's Arctic. There, we delivered new Ranger rifles in Yellowknife and announced infrastructure upgrades to our facilities in Nanisivik and in Alert. And we have begun delivering new standard military pattern trucks at various bases across the country. So, Mr. Chair, caring for our people and giving them the tools to do their jobs well is essential for our success. It is fundamental to our goal of advancing Canada's position as a leader in promoting global stability and security. On this front, we have made significant progress the past year. Last November, in Vancouver, we hosted the United Nations Peacekeeping Defense Ministerial. There, in partnership with Romeo Dallaire Child Soldiers Initiative, we developed the Vancouver Principles on peacekeeping and the prevention of the recruitment and use of child soldiers. To date, I'm proud to say that 68 United Nations member states have endorsed these principles. And Mr. Chair, where the previous government stepped back, we are stepping forward to show true international leadership. We're also working with Global Affairs Canada to support the ELSI initiative for women in peace operations. And this forms the basis of our efforts to increase women's participation in peacekeeping around the world and bolster gender equality and inclusion. And in March, we announced that we would deploy an air task force to MINUSMA, the United Nations mission in Mali. That task force is now fully operational, and since June, it has provided critical support to the United Nations, including medical evacuations. During more than 1,000 flight hours, it has transported 1,900 passengers and approximately 200,000 pounds of cargo. And I'm proud to say that 14% of our troops on this mission are women, and this is above the UN average. Our efforts internationally extend well beyond our peacekeeping mission. We continue to work closely with our NATO allies in Europe. Our support for Ukraine is unwavering, and we have been training Ukrainian security forces and building their capacity and capability. In Latvia, we recently extended our commitment to NATO's Enhanced Foreign Presence battle group at Camp Adazi by more than 4 years, and that's the wider Op Reassurance mission. In Romania, we continue to stand side by side with our NATO allies to deter aggression and ensure peace and stability in the region. We currently have Canadian Armed Forces personnel deployed in Romania as part of NATO's Enhanced Air Policing mission, as well as the Royal Canadian Navy frigate continues to be deployed with NATO's maritime forces. And currently, HMCS Ville de Quebec is supporting NATO assurance and deterrence measures in the region. And it has the first operational deployment of the CH-148 Cyclone helicopter. I would also be remiss if I did not mention Canada's participation in Exercise Trident Juncture 2018, the largest NATO joint training exercise since the Cold War. Approximately 2,000 Canadian Armed Forces personnel participated in exercise in Northern Europe, which concluded yesterday. This large-scale NATO exercise was an important measure to ensure our NATO forces are trained and ready to respond to threats against the alliance. But now that I have summarized some of our most significant achievements in the areas of people and operations, I would like to move forward toward the requests we are making for supplementary funding today. So everything we are requesting now will continue to drive strong security engagement forward and continue to deliver on its commitments. So turning back to our greatest priority, I will begin with the requests we are making to deliver even more world-class services and activities to care for our people. We're requesting $17 million that will go directly to the well-being of our Canadian Armed Forces members. These funds will cover our members' Blue Cross health benefits. We're also requesting $22 million for individual compensation, initial scheduled payments, administration and legal costs related to the LGBTQ2 Purge Class Action Final Settlement Agreement. With respect to capabilities and innovation, we are seeking $38.4 million for additional infrastructure upgrades to our bases and wings across the country. This will help us to complete 23 ongoing construction and repair projects. As previously mentioned, we are also requesting $282 million for capital investments. Among other things, the funds will go toward equipment such as vehicles, lab equipment, and software. It will also go toward IT infrastructure modernization efforts and cyber and data security enhancements, which will improve DND's cybersecurity posture. and we are requesting $2.5 million in additional funding for the Innovation for Defense Excellence and Security, or IDEAS for short, our program to transform defense innovation. IDEAS will drive forward research and innovation projects across 16 defense challenges, such as better understanding of post-traumatic stress disorder and cyber attribution. I would now like to highlight the request that will allow us to deliver on our commitment to international leadership. As part of our contribution to the transatlantic security and NATO, we are requesting $24.2 million for the NATO military budget. Now, while the previous government withdrew Canada from the NATO's AWACS program and diminished our reputation at NATO, our government knows that the world benefits when Canada steps up and does our part. And that is why I was pleased to announce our government would re-engage in the AWACS program. And I'm also proud of our new NATO training mission in Iraq, an important signal that Canada can be relied upon to do its part when needed. We will also transfer $53.8 million to the Global Affairs Canada Counterterrorism and Capacity Building Program to support the government's Middle East strategy. So, Mr. Chair, before I conclude, as part of these supplementary estimates, I'd like to highlight a transfer that we are making that relates to our government's broader efforts toward reconciliation with Canada's Indigenous peoples. Building on the progress we made last year with respect to Campion Barracks, we will transfer over $48,000 to Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Canada to help cover the salary costs of implementing the Camp Aprilwash Final Settlement Agreement and ultimately return the land to the Kettle and Stony Point First Nation. So, Mr. Chair, we are committed to ensuring that the money we manage has a positive impact on our most important asset, our Canadian Armed Forces members, and the families who serve alongside them. And I'm proud of what we have already delivered, and we will continue to build on these priorities through smart investments. And on this note, Mr. Chair, open up to questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. To get through this, so everyone has an opportunity. I'm going to be really disciplined at moving us along. If someone sees this, either a questioner or a responder, please wrap it up in 30 seconds, and at the end of that, I'll be moving us along. First 7-minute question is going to be going to Mr. Spangeman. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Minister Sajjan, it's good to be with you. Good to have you back, along with Deputy Minister Thomas and your senior leadership team. And it's perhaps particularly significant that we're with you today as members of Parliament, as you pointed out, are returning tonight to their ridings to honour the lives and service of Canada's veterans. Minister, just before delving into some of the details of the supplementary estimates, as a committee we travelled to the United Nations headquarters just last week, and the message that we heard from the United Nations was overwhelming and unequivocal, which is that Canada is back in peace support operations and that our contributions do matter. And we're about to approach or be upon the anniversary of the 2017 UN Peacekeeping Defence Ministerial, and I'm wondering if you could give the committee an update on what we've achieved so far and what we're doing with respect to our re-engagement with the United Nations.
No, thank you very much for that very important question. And I think Canada is known from its past that we have stepped up at a time when the world needed it, and Canada has always played a very important role with its allies when it comes to peace and security around the world. And the United Nations plays a very important role on the world stage, and especially dealing with conflict, trying to prevent conflict and reducing them. Since the Defence Ministerial last year, we took a very thoughtful approach in terms of consulting with the right people to making sure with Canada's re-engagement in peace support operations, we wanted to support the United Nations goals and reforms. And because even though Canada had a very strong reputation of peacekeeping, we know that the peacekeeping of today is not the peacekeeping of the past. So we looked at what do the missions require, what does a whole of government mean. So when we put forward our pledges, our whole of government approach from a military, development and capacity building, it was about providing the right resources. So one aspect was very important, was understanding the realities on the ground. There's great work that's happening with the missions, but they need, there's a lack of high-level capability that only select few nations can provide. And that's how the Smart Pledges concept was created and what we are doing in Mali at this time. providing a high-level capability, but at the same time, no one nation will be burdened with that capability. And it allows commanders to make sure that the mission evolves and continues within a good progression. The other aspect was the increasing number of women in peacekeeping operations and the ELSI initiative, making sure that we incentivize nations to increase the participation of women, but more and doing it in a meaningful way. We are working very closely with Minister Freeland and Global Affairs to help deliver on this. And the other aspect was the challenges that the conflicts currently create of the increasing number of people being recruited into radical organizations. And this is where the Child Soldier Initiative and the Vancouver Principles plays very important roles. How do you reduce the number of recruits going in and also make it be able to train our members and also member states, the troops, to be able to deal with child soldiers. So the work is progressing, but one thing that we have been doing is doing it in a meaningful way that's going to have a tangible impact, not only for the United Nations, but a tangible impact on the ground.
Minister, thank you very much. It's very helpful to hear these thoughts, especially in the context of the Secretary General's action for peace reforms and also the Peace Building Fund, the complementarity that you're speaking to there. Thank you for that. Going into the supplementary estimates, Minister, the DND is requesting the authority to transfer some $53.8 million to the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development in support of the Middle East strategy. And I'm wondering if you could take this opportunity to let the committee know your thoughts on the Middle East and the key elements of the Middle East strategy as you see them in cooperation with Foreign Affairs.
So this is there's a much wider strategy for the Middle East. As one of the things that we as a government have when we're conducting any type of major operations, and especially a decision as a government, we believe that a whole of government approach is extremely important. That it's not just strictly about the military. It's about looking at the realities on the ground. What do our coalition partners need? And that's what this is about. Global Affairs Canada has programs that they run in terms of counterterrorism, the capacity building piece, where our members then help to support in many different countries. And I can have General Winnick, if you wanted to elaborate on that.
Thank you, Minister. Yes, if I could just provide some additional details with regards to Operation Impact. Over the course of 3 years, Canada, as I'm sure you're aware, is committed to invest $2 billion in support of the Middle East engagement strategy. But the specific transfer that you're referring to, sir, is going to be dedicated to a number of things, including road construction and rehabilitation on Jordan's northern border with Syria, a significant contribution to Jordan's Department of Military Women's Affairs to advance the agenda in that regard, providing some winterization in vehicles to logistics vehicles to operate in forward operating bases in higher areas, and providing non-lethal equipment and aid to Iraqi security forces. So there are other things as well, but those are sort of the major contributions that would, or the major elements of that contribution that you referred to.
Thank you very much. Minister, going into Remembrance Week, many of us in our communities see the Air Cadets out in full force collecting money for the Royal Canadian Legion and showing their presence in the community. I'm wondering if you take the remaining 30 seconds of my time to give the committee your vision of the cadet program and what we could do to support it.
Every time I visit the cadets or I talk about the cadet program, it is the #1 leadership program for our youth in the country. What's the number? Over 50,000?
Yes, Mr.
Yes. And what we're trying to do with the cadet program is enhance it. One of the things I want to try to see how we can have more cadets be able to participate on summer camps. And that's something that I have seen, and when I visited the camps across the country. The other aspect of something I'm extremely impressed with the cadets they're doing and what we can learn, which is diversity. They have a lot more girls in the cadet program and diversity, which represent the population. And that's something that I've been extremely impressed with, and that's something that we need to extrapolate for the Canadian Armed Forces as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Minister. MP Possessed.
department officials and members of the Canadian Armed Forces for joining us today. And this being Veterans Week and Remembrance Day fast approaching, for those of you that have served and those of you that are currently serving, I want to say thank you so much for your service. And on behalf of the official opposition, I hope you pass on to all the members of the Canadian Armed Forces our sincerest appreciation for what they do and standing on guard for all of us. I was a little disappointed when I was looking through the supplementary estimates, Minister. Under Vote A, the allocation is $4.1 billion total now. However, if you look at your defence policy, strong, secure, and engaged, you pledged $6.6 billion for this same year. So you're $2.5 billion short. Last year, you were short and missed the mark on your defence policy. Also, the amount for pensions in the public accounts for 2017-2018 was supposed to be $3.4 billion, but in subs A's it's $1.2 billion, so $2.2 billion short on pensions for our military members. So, you know, we've said all along that we had concerns that Strong, Secure, Engage was a book of empty promises. You're underfunding it. I don't know how you plan on catching up. Now, you did talk about Latvia and the important role that we're playing with NATO and dealing with Russian aggression in the region. You talked about Operation Honor and respecting female members, or all members of the Canadian Armed Forces who deal with sexual misconduct and sexual assault. However, last week we saw a disturbing report in the media related to the Team Canada flight that went over to Latvia to build morale with our troops in Latvia and Greece. There's been a misinformation campaign coming from the department, from your office. So I ask you, Minister, did you or your press secretary, Bryn Forlong, approve statements suggesting that the VIP party flight would only cost $15,000, which was reported last year?
Thank you very much for the question, and also you make sure that the message to the troops is going to be passed on for the tremendous support that all parliamentarians give them. First of all, answer your question regarding in terms of the budgetary side and in SSE and what we're trying to achieve here. Now, keep in mind, it's also important that the Canadian Armed Forces needed predictable and sustainable funding to be able to plan out for the long term. The defence policy does that. But also at the same time, we had to create a structure in place to be able to be able to take the investments and be able to do more with it. And I'll talk about it in a second. Probably the most important piece to this was making sure that we didn't have lapsed funding. And that has been now,
but you're underfunding.
Now that has been done, lapsed funding, and happy to be able to explain that in more detail. When it comes to the other projects in terms of our capacity to be able to spend, we are trying to spend on projects as fast as possible, but as responsibly as possible. So as we're increasing our capacity to be able to take on greater projects, and we will, you'll see the increase in that. We will be able to do more. But that is also part of the legacy that we had to deal with in terms of having not enough people to be able to not only manage the project. So that,
but you said
that not only that will continue.
Goals, and you're missing those goals now. So my question, Minister, was actually about the flight.
Yeah, I'm getting
the claim that was $15,000, which we know later came in at $338,000. So
I'm happy to answer your question. But you rose about pensions, and I'm just trying to answer the question that you asked, right?
No, that was a statement. My question.
Oh, that was opening statement. Okay, no, happy to do that. So okay.
My question was, did you or Press Secretary Bryn Forlong approve statements suggesting that the VIP party flight only cost $15,000 when it actually cost $337,000?
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that even during the statements that we provide accurate information to you, so that the context is given to you, and we don't want any falsehoods to be left on the table either. So on the question regarding when you're talking about the ATIPs, so ATIPs. First of all, our government has made it very clear that we want to be open and transparent so that Canadians can have a better look at how their government functions and how the expenditures are done. With regards to your question there, ATIPs work not in terms of a question. ATIPs function in terms of the amount of time and information is required. From that, it is gleaned in terms of somebody can glean the information of what how they want to derive that information. In terms of the information provided, we have provided multiple information, ATIPs. We had a significant backlog, which we are trying to deal with.
This wasn't a black.
But one thing,
this was a statement that your office put out about the cost of the flight. You said it was $15,000. It was signed off by Bryn Forlong. I assume that you approved that before he signed
ATIPs
off.
and the questions are different things. We want to make sure we provide accurate information.
But you missed the mark big time.
Don't provide the necessary structure to be able to do just that. When it comes to the actual flight, first of all, I want to be able to directly say that any type of behavior on that was taken, we take that thing very seriously, and we have not only looked into this in a very aggressive manner, but also we have taken action onto this. And we have been very clear in terms of the information that we want to provide, and making sure that it is accurate as possible.
Well, and we question the accuracy because the story's been changing over the last 8 months. Now, did you or Chris Henderson, your ADM for Public Affairs, approve a statement that suggested the level of drinking on the VIP party flight resembled that of a commercial flight? When you see the video, it says it sure doesn't look like any commercial flight I've ever been on.
Well, so the Team Canada concept is, as you would know, as your time as Parliamentary Secretary to National Defence, is done for the increasing of morale. But at the same time, regardless of what is done, there are very high standards in the environment that we have committed to in the Canadian Armed Forces. When this was
airplanes getting soaked in booze and urine, and this was a real debacle, which happened as a debauchery. So were you briefed, Minister, on sexual assault that happened on that flight?
When this was discovered, so not only...
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Is this related to SUP-A's?
Yeah, we're talking about Latvia, we're talking about morale, we're talking about Operation Honor, which the Minister mentioned, and this is about Operation Honor. So, there's been a cover-up going on by the department, by the Minister's office, and if the Liberals at the committee here want to try cover up that sexual assault that occurred on that flight, then I leave that to you guys.
So, Mr. Chairman, actually, I'm happy to take on this question, but my point being is, the point that you raised, when this was discovered, one thing I can assure everybody on this committee, that we have an absolute aggressive zero-tolerance policy on this. When this was discovered, we conducted the appropriate investigations to find out exactly what happened. We have now gleaned on the lessons, and I'm looking forward to the findings on this from the Chief of Defence Staff. The Team Canada has been suspended up until this time, but one thing is very important. A culture like this is not created overnight when it comes to Operation Honor. It has started for some time. And this is something that we as a government have taken very seriously, from the Prime Minister down from myself and the senior leadership that you see here. And we will continue to aggressively deal with this and making sure that we create an environment so every Canadian Armed Forces members, when they join, have the opportunity to be able to reach their full potential. Thank you.
Point of clarification, was that a yes or no?
Time's up. MP Garrison.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the Minister and officials for being here with us again. I think it is appropriate that you're here during Remembrance Week, and I'd like to take this opportunity, as others have done, not only to thank veterans, but to thank those who are currently serving for their service. I find that there are some good things in these supplemental estimates, and in particular, I'm very pleased to see the additional funding for military family resource centres, who I know do such a fabulous job in my riding at CFB Esquimalt and across the country. And there's often almost a cliche of saying it's not just the member who serves, but the family. And I'm glad to see us doing more to resource those services to families. So thank you for that, Mr. Minister. I'm also glad to see the provision for compensation for those LGBTQ2 service members pre-1992 who were prejudicially treated. However, what I see here is a very narrow approach to that problem based on the class action lawsuit. And in November of 2016, this committee made a request to the Minister to authorize the revision of service records, separate issue from the compensation, so that the service of those members who were kicked out, mostly, could be recognized as honorable. And we had the military ombudsman here before the committee. He said that on request, he would be able to deal with those if he was authorized by the minister. So what I'm asking you today is to go beyond the class action lawsuit and follow the advice of this committee, which was unanimous, to revise the service records to recognize the service of those who were kicked out as honorable.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you for your tireless work on this. It is because of something that I want you to know that we fully not only agree and how we're working towards making sure that we're righting an historic wrong. It's not just about the apologies that we continue through with the requests that were made. Now, in terms of how we're going about this, it's very important to note that the final settlement agreement that we follow, what was agreed upon, because that's what from the class action lawsuit, the plaintiffs themselves had agreed to. So we need to follow that. So that's very, very important. The expungement process that we talked about, that process goes through a separate channel. Once it gets expunged, comes back to us, and then it goes through the actual text of what's actually required that was actually agreed upon. And that's also very important. At the end of the day, I need to make sure that we follow the final settlement agreement, because that was the agreement that was based on. I do agree with, in terms of what you're saying when it comes to honorable discharge. That's exactly what this whole, the spirit of this that we're trying to achieve here. And our team have been working on this, but we have to be able to meet our commitment to the final settlement agreement and the language that was agreed upon.
Well, I do agree with you. You have to meet those terms, but the class action lawsuit was the minimum the government agreed to. And what we're hearing from those who served is that the service record thing is important, not for compensation, not for money, but to recognize their honorable service. So I'm going to continue to come back to you and ask you, probably the simplest way is to authorize the military ombudsman, once the other things are done, on request, to actually revise those service records. So you're going to hear from me again in the future. One other good thing that was in these estimates is the extension of Canada's commitment to the enhanced forward presence in Latvia. I was privileged to be part of this committee who visited the troops there. I want to relate that to our visit to New York, where the committee met the UN Department of Peacekeeping operations and also UN missions who are associated with the Mali mission. And one of the things that we heard there fairly consistently, I can't say who because we're under Chatham House rules all the time, but fairly consistently is that now that Canada's there, we've taken the careful steps needed to get the mission up and running. Will Canada consider staying a second year? 1 year is a fairly short deployment given the effort we've made to get there. And it would mean some other country having to make a similar effort very soon to ramp up again. So I'm asking whether you are actively considering extending our commitment to that Mali mission for another year.
No, thank you very much for that. Actually, a very important question. And we've looked at, in terms of when we want a re-engagement and looked at the analysis, what we wanted to do is, this is not just strictly about what Canada can provide and offer up. And the Prime Minister is very careful when he talks about multilateralism. We want to be a responsible coalition partner, whether it's part of the counter ISIS, whether it's a NATO or the United Nations. And in this case here, we did a very thorough analysis, talking to not only United Nations, but meeting some of the nations themselves, the leadership, on what was actually needed. So the reason why, in terms of the smart pledging concept, is important is this is not just about 1-2 years. This is about sustaining a capability for the long term and key capabilities. So we have, as part of our commitment, not only offered this up, but this is about us doing our part potentially for other missions as well. But the ultimate goal is making sure that the mission itself is sustained. Because if you do not get into a smart pledging concept, one nation will get burdened with this, and then eventually what was happening in the past was that capabilities were being lost or diminished for these missions. So we want to make sure that the great work that's been happening on the ground, it can be sustained. So that's why this is done. This is not just about, this is not about 1 or 2 years. This is about creating a concept and making it happen, a smart pledging concept, which has worked well in other places.
Certainly, we very consistently heard that our contribution is welcome, and it is the right contribution to this mission. But we also heard there's a need for countries around the world to provide the diplomatic and political support to this mission in Mali, that it's very much in the interest of everyone to make sure Mali does not collapse in terms of human trafficking, weapons trafficking, drug trafficking, all the very negative international repercussions, not to mention the very severe repercussions on the civilian population of Mali. So I guess I understand what you're saying to me, but still I think we promised a bit more than we appear to be delivering, and by extending that, we would provide significant diplomatic and political support for that mission in Mali. So I'm hoping that you will consider a second year of that commitment.
Thank you. I'm going to have to move on to the next speaker, MP Fisher.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, Minister, for being here. It seems like it's the second time in about a month. And Deputy Minister, always great to be at the table with another Nova Scotian. Thank you for being here, to you and your team. Appreciate it. Minister, I'm interested in some of the more important capital projects that we've been able to deliver on recently for our Canadian Armed Forces. Now, I don't need to tell you, Halifax Shipyards is right across the harbour from Dartmouth Cole Harbour. And in fact, as you also know, the steel for our wonderful AOPS is cut in Dartmouth. So it's very, very important. Shipbuilding is very, very important to my community. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about the announcement that you made last week in Halifax and its impact on the Canadian Navy, and maybe if you could even touch on the Harry DeWolf and the naming and the launching of the Harry DeWolf recently and its impact on our Navy, and perhaps what its next steps are before it becomes operational.
The national shipbuilding strategy is extremely important to the Canadian Armed Forces, to our Navy. It's extremely important to the communities where the direct work has been conducted, and also the indirect benefits that it actually has across Canada. And every time I'm able to visit the shipyards, and especially in Halifax, you get to see the workers directly. The pride that they actually have in the work is amazing. The ingenuity that they're bringing into place in terms of having more women coming into those trades, having more Indigenous. And I met one member of the union who gave me his copy and talked about how he remembers the Indigenous members of his family. So that's the human aspect of what this actually delivers. In terms of the capability for the Navy, it's tremendous. It's very important to actually go back, though, to when the defense policy was created, when we did the analysis. It's not about just saying how many numbers that we want. You have to be able to put the money behind it so that it can be sustained. And that's something that we committed to in the defense policy, to making sure that we're going to have 5 Arctic Patrol ships, and with a possibility of a 6th. We went through the analysis, and we were able, and then with determining the right funding. And I was very proud to announce on behalf of the government that we are having a 6th. And the 6th provides the additional capability for us to be able to do simultaneous operations, not only on both coasts, while at the same time making sure that our ships have the proper maintenance cycles for it as well. Tremendous capability. And let's not forget that they're called Arctic for a reason. It's the message that it sends to our northern Arctic communities, that how Canada is serious about the communities that actually live up there, and how they're going to be supported. How serious we are about our Arctic sovereignty, and the message that it sends to our allies, that we will do our part for our own sovereignty. And let's not forget the message that it also sends to our adversaries, how seriously we'll be taking it. And the process is also moving steadily along for the Canadian Surface Combatant as well. But let's not forget all the investments that are being made into our Navy through the National Shipbuilding Strategy and the jobs that are creating. It's much part of a wider plan to making sure that Canada is not only be able to support itself in Canada and to project properly when it comes to our sovereignty, but for us to be able to do more. At this time, I think we've had 11 ships either on operations or on training exercises. That is a significant accomplishment for our people, and what our Navy is actually capable of doing. So I'm very proud of the work of our women and men in the Navy, and also the tremendous pride that the workers at Halifax shipyards have actually put into this.
So the DeWolf is done and it is launched and will be operational next year. And Margaret Brook is in the process, and then the third one has started already?
Yes.
Am I correct in
So
that?
the third one has started, yes.
Amazing. So yes, I was thrilled when you were able to make that announcement last week on the 6th-day ops. That's huge for our community. When you were last in Petawawa, you unveiled a few of the new military trucks purchased under the Medium Support Vehicle System project. Can you tell us a little bit more about this project and how this is going to make a difference to the troops?
I'm glad you raised the logistics piece. When we look at supporting our military, we sometimes talk about a lot of the armored vehicles that they play an essential role, and there's always been discussion about more teeth, less tail. And to me, that is a ridiculous statement to make, because without the proper logistics, a military cannot properly function. And we identified very early the need for these trucks, and I was very happy to see that the delivery was happening in Petawawa. Not only the flexibility that's going to be able to allow our military to be able to function for better support itself, but you get the direct, when I was there and talking to some of the folks, when the soldiers are saying what a tremendous capability and how thrilled they are to actually drive the vehicle and what it actually provides, you know that you're delivering high quality equipment for our women and men. And the interesting aspects of it is, as we see these vehicles, they're going to be able to even find more ways to get use out of these vehicles. The logistics sustainment piece for our military is absolutely essential for us to be able to conduct the exercises, the training, and the operations that we as a government ask them to do.
Is there more time, Mr. Speaker? A little less
Question and response.
So do you have a quick...
Thank you very much, Minister. Thanks for coming. I, like Mr. Garrison, am always happy to hear of more funding going into military resource centres. I have one in my riding at CFB Kingston, and from my time as a municipal politician to current day, I can testify to the amazing work that they do in terms of making sure that the resources are put there for our military families, in particular when their loved ones are deployed. Can you comment a little bit on the funding that's going into that?
So we have ongoing additional money that's gone into the military family resource centers. Our teams right now are doing a lot of work on the longer term projects in terms of the military family resource centers, and we're looking at across Canada, making sure that the families are going to be well supported. And we'll have more to say as the concept is further developed. But one thing I can assure you, the infrastructure piece to it has a top priority from me all the way down. And this is also in line with the Seamless Canada work that General Lamar has been also working on tirelessly to making sure that as families relocate from province to province, that they have less burden on them.
Thank you. We'll go to 5-minute questions now, and the first 5-minute questions goes to MP Derwitz. The floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, Minister Sajjan. Thank you, Deputy Minister, and to your team. And thank you for honoring the 100th year anniversary of the end of World War I. Few people know this, but in my 13 square kilometer of riding of Davenport in downtown West Toronto, I have a cemetery that has the largest amount of burials of World War I veterans and Allied members, so 5,300. It's actually very beautiful. We have an extra special celebration that's actually taking place this Sunday, so just wanted to mention that. Minister, as part of your remarks, you talked a bit about diversity, and our committee will be moving on to a study of diversity after we've concluded Bill C-77. I think that in light of the events in St. Jean reported on this spring and the recent media articles around extreme right and white supremacist views in some Canadian Armed Forces members, I wonder if you might be on record saying something to this, and as well, if you could take a moment to talk about diversity and how it is indeed our strength and an essential part of mission success.
No, thank you for that. I think across Canada, there's a lot of cemeteries of our World War I veterans, and it is important to acknowledge and know where those cemeteries are. And I have one actually just what is it, inside my riding, but across the street from it. And the reason I bring this up in terms of, I'm glad you raised the armistice. And I'll answer your question in terms of the diversity, how important it is. If you go back to World War I, and those of you know the detailed history of World War I, the world came together at a time it was needed. The British Empire was Canada, India, and many other nations, and they all came within 6 weeks of World War I being declared. You had Indian divisions landing in Europe and in Belgium trying to block the Germans. You had units that coming from Africa, Canadians coming together. It's at a time, and it's a reminder to everybody, is when conflict is there, no one looks at the color of your skin. It's look about, are you going to back me up? Mm-hmm. And we cannot forget those lessons, especially at a time like this. And we have forgotten those lessons. And this is why we have dealt with a lot of the problems within the Canadian Armed Forces, and we need to acknowledge that. And we have. So whether it's Operation Honor, whether it's the issues of racism in the Canadian Armed Forces, we as a leadership, our government, and also the senior leadership in DND and the military acknowledge this and are actively working very hard and aggressively to deal with this. The importance of creating that environment and making sure that we have a superb, diverse Canadian Armed Forces makes us more effective operationally. I personally witnessed this overseas, and other nations are also see this as a value, and we have the ability to do so. But we need to make sure that we recruit the best. Mm-hmm. And regrettably, I am concerned about some of the things that I have seen and read about. One thing I can assure you, any incident that is discovered in the Canadian Armed Forces that is reported is investigated and aggressively dealt with. Because we are committed to making sure that we create that environment for every Canadian Armed Forces member to have the honor of serving with this uniform and to remember the lessons that were learned. Because when you work together overseas, no one looks at the color of your skin. So we are working very aggressively. I'm monitoring this situation very closely. This is regrettably a result of what we see also around the world. But one thing in Canada, for us, we need to take a leadership role. The apology that the Prime Minister made just yesterday is a reminder to all of us. We as leaders, as parliamentarians, what are we doing? What is our responsibility in this to making sure that our entire nation stays on the right path? And so that our grandchildren or great-grandchildren down the road don't come back and say, what were they thinking? Mm-hmm. And so, and we in the Canadian Armed Forces have a tremendous responsibility on this, but one thing I can assure all the members here, how seriously we take this, and we will aggressively continue to deal with it until we have stomped it completely out.
Okay. Thank you so much. I was told I have no more time, sadly. Thank you.
MP Gallant.
Since the minister takes the issue of sexual assault so seriously, when was it that he was briefed on the alleged sexual assaults that occurred on the VIP party flight to Latvia?
I don't have the exact date, but one thing I can assure you that these incidents are not only when they're reported.
When? Give me a time frame. You don't know exactly when. Was it a week, a month, a year? When were you advised?
I don't, as I stated, I don't have the exact date, but when it was reported, immediate action was taken to making sure the appropriate investigation that our members at that time were well looked after, so that they not only allow making sure that the thorough investigation, the military leadership also made the right decision to making sure to put
Thank you. But since the minister does not have the date, and I told him the time frame was good enough, perhaps he would be so kind as to get that date to us at a later point in time within the week before these have to be reported. Did the minister or office approve the statements that went out from the Department of National Defence Public Affairs that have since been proven to be false? Did the minister approve them?
I don't understand your question, because the premise that you're insinuating is kind of take
okay. Did you approve the statements that went out from DND Public Affairs on the VIP flight to Latvia?
The statement, which statements are you referring to?
The statements that there was, it was just a normal flight, that alcohol was served to the extent that a commercial flight would serve it. I
need, for me to answer that question, I need the accuracy to making sure that, to know what we're talking about. If you're talking about the ATIPs.
I'm not talking about the ATIPs. I'm talking about the statements that have been approved and submitted by Public Affairs. Did you approve those statements put forth by Public
Affairs?
Point
of order, Mr. Chair.
Which?
Mr. Chair, the point has been brought up twice now that this is not directly related to the supplement that we're discussing here. The point has been brought up. I would like a ruling from the chair as to whether or not this is appropriate questioning.
Well, before I do that, let me refer back to Ms. Gallant and ask her how she's tying this conversation back to the notice of meeting and the supplementary estimates, to be fair.
Op honor. And quite frankly, in having this collaboration with the members of the government on this committee is quite disconcerting. If the minister and other members of the government are not serious and are not asking the questions that relate directly to Op honor, how are the women in Canada's National Armed Forces supposed to have any faith in Op honor and use it themselves?
Just before I'll allow it, I would ask us all to remind us all that we're parliamentarians, and I'll let the minister answer that question.
I'm actually, I'm very happy that you're outraged by this, because we too are outraged. We're outraged at the fact that these things are happening in the Canadian Armed Forces. This is why we take this very seriously. As I stated, when this was discovered, immediate action was taken. All now Team Canada initiative has been suspended until we do a thorough review and recommendations are made.
Thank you.
As information that we had, we wanting to be more transparent, and we have been. We pushed out as much information as we can.
Okay, and have any of the military flight crew members been transferred, reassigned, or discharged after reporting the sexual assaults committed against them? Because that's more the norm than the exception.
One thing I can assure you this, we will hold people to account when it's been thoroughly investigated. This is a culture aspect that needs to be addressed, and we are doing this. And when it comes to any type of issue like this, we have taken an Operation Honor, we have taken many steps when it comes to incidents like this to making sure people are held to account regardless of position or rank.
And what were the costs of flying out the new military flight crew to the VIP flight back to Greece and Latvia?
Sorry, can you repeat that, please?
The crew which was assaulted was flown back to Canada on a commercial flight, but somebody had to be on that crew to return the flight from Latvia back to Canada. What were the costs for those flights?
The cost for returning our people back to Canada?
For having a new crew come from Canada to Latvia to be the flight attendants on the return flight.
So we don't, in terms of the actual, when we're talking about how our people are going to be assigned or where they're moved, I think what we were talking about is how we're looking after our people. One thing, when we looked at the situation, our first priority was to making sure that our people are well supported.
We have the $24,000 that it cost to send the crew that was abused back, but we don't have the amount that it cost to send a new crew into Latvia to take their place because they were gone.
I don't have the answer to your question. Obviously,
okay. We would like that at a future point in time within the next week or so that we can account for it within our estimates.
I just wanted to make sure, because the passion that you have for something like this, that we can all agree. I want to make sure that we give you the confidence and answer your question regarding how we look after our people. When any incidents like this happen, our first action is always to look at how is the person is going to be treated. And that's the first aspect we looked at. And the investigation was immediately launched to making sure that we got to the bottom of exactly what has happened, and so that appropriate action can be taken, and that's exactly what's happening now.
When did
that's your time, Ms. Lord. I'm going to yield the floor to MP Robillard. The floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank the Minister for his excellent testimony. My questions will, of course, be put in French. The CSE is the only organization in your portfolio that has required funding in the budget outside of national defense. Could you tell us more about the way that the CSE plays an important role in cybersecurity, a measure that was announced by our government just last month?
For your question, I also want to acknowledge your tremendous support that you've always given to cadets, and I never have forgotten our conversations regarding that. CSE plays a very important role in giving Canadians confidence that not only that our institutions are well protected when it comes to cyber, but also the important function that they play in educating regular Canadians on how to be cyber safe. Our government has taken cybersecurity extremely seriously, and the recent investments that we have made into cyber and centralized the cybersecurity aspect of the work within CSE is another way of the step towards making sure that we evolve and continue to have the right resources and capabilities in the governance structure to making sure that Canada remains safe. I was proud for that the Cyber Centre of Excellence has been virtually launched, and the people that have been assigned to it, I can assure you, have not only the right expertise, and now we're working towards making sure we are able to continually evolve and making sure that any type of future threats, not only to our institutions but also to our democracy, is looked at. And CSE does a lot of has been working with Minister Gould on supporting her and her very, very important work on that regard. And I'll pass the rest to Shelley if you want to expand on the Cyber Centre there.
Thank you, Minister. CSE has a very unique mandate within the government to provide advice and guidance and services to those infrastructures of importance to the government. So there's a wide range of target audiences we have here, whether it's small and medium enterprises, whether it's critical infrastructure or government systems, or the Canadian citizenry writ large. As the Minister mentioned, on October 1st, we launched the Cyber Centre, and that amalgamated all of the operational cyber expertise within the government into a single centre, which is virtual right now, but will be instantiated in a physical space within a number of months. And in that space, we've established a federal point of presence, so Canadians can, of all stripes and from whichever constituency they belong, can come and ask for advice and guidance, which is very broadly delivered. It also allows us to respond more effectively and in a single way against any major incidents that the Canadian government might have to manage.
Thank you. En tant que député, nous entendons.
As members, we often hear about the difficulties of military families. We know that that deployment and all of them moving across the country is a real challenge. Could you update us on the Seamless Canada initiative comprises with respect to the military family resource centers and the relocalization policy?
The families of our military members and looking after them is extremely important. I think we can all agree that regardless of what job you have, if your family situation at home is things aren't well, how could you function at work? And imagine what we ask our Canadian Armed Forces members to do, whether it's in training or even on operations. And that's what this is about, making sure that we look after our family. The relocation is a significant challenge that we learned when I learned when I became a minister, as much as most of my experience was from the reserves. And we wanted to figure out a way, how can we support those families? And the military has done tremendous work in bringing together the leadership from the different provinces to talk about the barriers. And we had a meeting which I was able to attend in Toronto, where we brought representatives from all the provinces. talk about those barriers and figure out what are the things that we can actually do, sometimes just simply by changing rules, whether it's from driver's licenses, accreditation for various employment. So that conversation has started. One very important aspect we're trying to improve upon, which is having more doctors. Every time a military family moves, they lose their doctor, and we've been working to rectify this. And so this is one important aspect, and we have another meeting coming up in December.
Thank you, sir.
Just a reminder to all members that we are here to talk about SUP-As, and I have provided some latitude for us because it's a pretty big topic, but I would encourage us all to stay on point. Thank you for your great questions. Thank you for your answers, Minister. I'm going to yield the floor to MP Martel.
Thank you for coming here today. In my writing, I have the Bagotville base. And there's something of concern to us right now. The F-18s from Australia that you purchased, how much did you allocate in the budget for the repair and maintenance of these Australian fighter jets? Because we know that they're older than our own CF-18s.
Visiting Bagotville a number of times to see the tremendous work that they do. And to get a better sense of what type of future investments that are needed, not just on the actual aircraft, but also for the base as well. The infrastructure pieces, because it plays a very important role when it comes to our NORAD mission. And my discussions very early on was looking at the requirements of the number of aircraft that are actually needed. So first we needed to focus on was not only the requirements of what we actually needed for, hence the reason why previously from the previous government said we only needed 65. But when we actually did the analysis, we realized we actually needed far more than that, and hence the reason why we have 88. So this is a good news for Bagotville in terms of the future fighter replacement of where it's actually going. But to do that transition responsibly, the F-18s, we are going to be investing in that number. What's it? 360. So it's 360 million that we're investing into that. But a price tag is only a price tag for what we also want to know why and where it's actually going. This is about not only modernizing the aircraft for the life extension, but also giving it the capability to make it better. I'll give you an example. During the previous government, a new helmet was purchased. It's great to have a proper helmet, but if you don't have the right missiles to be able to do the right targeting, it doesn't provide much value. So we are actually upgrading that to making sure that it has the right weapon system. So the current platform, as we transition into the new fighter that will eventually be selected through the process, we're investing in that so that Bagotville not only has the right number of aircraft to be able to carry out the missions, but the upgraded pieces so they can actually do more. Because it's not just the NORAD mission. Right now, we have air policing happening in Romania, and we have, 10 fighters in Trident Juncture, was it? I think it was what? I think approximately 10, I think we're trying to. That's around 18 aircraft that's doing other missions. Point being is, we are not only looking at from the fighter fleet, but we're actually looking at Bagotville, the important aspect of it. The Air Task Force, the deployment pieces, has gone into Bagotville as well.
On parle de budget. Présentement, on parle de budget.
And we're talking about the budget. What is the total cost of the Australian SF fighter planes, and how much are you, since we're talking about the budget, I need the figures.
It's on to Pat to be able to provide the details aspect of that.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur, pour la question. Comme le ministre a dit.
Thank you for your question. The budget for purchasing is $360 million, which includes infrastructure and other aspects. The planes themselves, what we're going to do right now is we're going to maintain them and bring them up to the Canadian level. They're about the same age as our planes, and we've set aside about $160 million to purchase spare parts and things, to update motors and engines, There are certain aspects of the plane need to be changed. We are going to have 88 planes that are going to be all identical. With respect to the pilots, have you got an additional budget for this? You know we're having difficulty recruiting. Have you made any plans in your budget to have something to train pilots? Because we've been told that motivation goes down when you're flying old planes, and we can see morale is going down, and we can see that in recruitment figures.
Recruitment. In fact, even before we made the final decision on the defense policy, we knew that we needed to recruit pilots. So we actually, the Canadian Armed Forces started recruiting almost immediately. Retention is also, and I'm glad you brought up the issue about morale. Previously, before you became an MP, the previous government, you would have had, if you went down that path, not only less aircraft to be used, but also the less investments in the current F-18s. But the other aspect of morale is the missions that you're also using them on. We're actually doing more with them, being responsible around the world. But the final things on morale is addressing some of those things on retention, and we're tackling those things as well directly.
I'm sorry, you're out of time. I'm going to pass the floor to MP Derwitz.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. Given the fact that you've asked us to be a little more focused on questions on the supplementary estimates, Minister, I want to talk about Vote 1 and Vote 5 and the funding that has been asked for to maintain and upgrade federal infrastructure assets as it relates to the North. I was very honored to take part in the Canadian Leaders at Sea program, where I sailed with the Navy from St. John's to Iqaluit. And I had a chance to meet with Canadian Armed Forces on the ground in Iqaluit, see some of the work that they're doing, the joint exercises, training exercises they were involved in. I saw the work they were doing to support the community and to build relations up there. It is absolutely crucial work. And so I saw how thinly supported they were up there, and so I was really delighted to see that there's some additional support that is planned for them. And I also had a chance to meet with the Rangers as well and see some of the and hear some of the amazing work that they do. So could you tell us how this funding how this funding is essential to maintain and upgrade the assets we have in the North, and maybe if you can talk a little bit about the Rangers program and its importance.
No, thank you. The infrastructure up in the North, as we start putting a greater emphasis on the Arctic tangibly, is very important. The investments that we have made, I've seen them tangibly. For example, the state-of-the-art refueling station in Nanisivik that will eventually support our ships that will be going through through that area. This is not just about being able to operate there for a little bit, but it will be able to sustain those operations. And 2.5 million.
National resources.
Yeah, so we have right now part of this we've got 2.5 million that's going to natural resources, but also it's also important to look at is the infrastructure that we're also looking at putting into place is how do we support our Rangers better? How do we then look at supporting the communities better? As we talk about our sovereignty isn't just a word. It's about how can we sustain and support our communities up in the North. So we conduct a lot of exercises. What our Rangers were asking for at the time is not the number of more Rangers, that they wanted more Ranger instructors, and we now are addressing that issue, making sure that support is also provided. The rifles was one aspect of it. We're looking at other equipment things. And let's not forget the other things that we're going to be looking from up in the North that may not be on the ground, but also in the air, from our remote piloted systems that will be eventually procuring, and also the satellites that we're going to be putting up, making sure we have the right structure in place, not just on the ground, but the communication, the command and control structure for up the North as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And just shifting to a completely different area, DND is requesting more than $24.1 million in funding for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. For what specific purposes will the requested amount be spent? And to what extent, if any, is the requested amount needed to fulfill commitments made by Canada at NATO's 2018 Brussels Summit?
The investments that we're making into NATO is probably the biggest investments are obviously with our people and the work that they're doing, whether it's in Latvia, our Navy and the air policing that's going on. And I just have to mention, even though it's not in NATO, Ukraine is also very important. What our troops are doing there. The AWACS program, the investments that we have made, is the first decision to go back into the AWACS program was about the investment side, and we've done that. And we're now also adding additional people into that. Diem, you want to talk about the details of it, though?
Thank you. We are transferring to NATO this year $2.2 million for the 2017-18 Security Investment Program, $1.5 million for the NATO command structure, their entities and programs, and then increasing support for ongoing programs is $20.5 million that's being transferred to NATO.
Great. Do I have any more time?
45 seconds for a question and a response, and then we have one quick question from MP Garrison, and then we'll...
Okay, so maybe I'll just ask a quick question. DND also requested more than $17 million for funding for Canadian Armed Forces benefits. So what specific health benefits would be financed by the requested funds?
CFO.
Yeah, pass this over to the CFO.
This funding was basically for Veteran Affairs to help them on the contract that we have as part of taking care of our members, especially when they are in transition. So basically we have a health contract that is managed by Veteran Affairs on behalf of National Defense, Veteran Affairs, and also the RCMP. In that case here, it's some payments from last year that they were not completely paid, so we received the invoice later on, and now we are transferring the fund to pay that factor, that invoice for them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last 3-minute questions goes to MP Garrison.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The minister will remember 2 years ago, I think it was in supplemental estimates, that I brought 3 of my constituents with Phoenix pay problems to this committee, and I still know that you're not generally the minister in charge, but we still have problems. And Phoenix continues to generate new cases. I have to say that one of the people who came here 2 years ago, his case is still not fixed, 2 years later. I also met very recently with a person in my constituency, a civilian, obviously civilian worker, who's trying to arrange her retirement. And because of problems with the Phoenix pay system, can't get a statement of what her income would be on retirement until the pay problems are fixed, and so is unable to decide when she should retire until this gets cleared up. So we know that Phoenix still is generating new cases, and while I do disagree with the chair's narrow focus here, there's actually a line in the supplementary estimates asking for money to address pay administration problems. So I'm going to ask again, when can the civilian employees of DND expect to see an end to new cases under Phoenix and a resolution of cases that are sometimes 2 years old?
Yeah. So first of all, it is unacceptable. When we talk about looking after women and men in the Canadian Armed Forces, equally our civilians in DND are part of that. As I stated before, we made a conscious decision not to put the military on the Phoenix pay system.
Thank you.
But one thing I can assure you is we're not leaving any stone unturned to deal with this. And if you can please give me the information again, and I'm sure that we are probably tracking the files. Any file that actually is brought forward is going to be dealt with. Nothing is being ignored. That's one thing I do want to assure you on this, because this is unacceptable, and we will leave no stone unturned. Do you have anything to add on that?
Well, I support everything the minister has said, and thank you for the question. It is 100% of my HR team's time, essentially, working on Phoenix. We do have 59,000 outstanding cases still. Unfortunately, some of the more complex ones that go back 2 years, we've done as much as we can in the department, and then they go to the queue in Miramichi to be looked at. We're hiring, we've now hired 150 people. We're reestablishing our compensation units that we reduced when Phoenix was rolled out in order that we can resolve our problems ourselves. We're working very closely with our colleagues at PSPC and Treasury Board in order to do this. We're very active on the Deputy Minister and ADM level committees to try and find a resolution to the problem.
And I do accept that the Minister in good faith and the Deputy Minister have tried to address this problem, but at some point the government has to be judged by the results. And I have heard from some people now who are concerned that they've become a squeaky wheel over their pay issues, and they worry that because they keep coming back again and again, that it'll have impacts on their career.
I can assure you that will not. We will not. In fact, we encourage anybody to come up if any concerns. Not only this, but I think it's not just dealing with the current thing. It's a reminder to anybody in any future governments is if when you start to look at trying to save money and what the repercussions might be down the road. And this is something that we take very seriously now when we look at our defense policy and the implementation piece to it. Anything that we do, we're making sure that any transition to the new software program, that we have the right resources in place to be able to manage that so that our people do not ever get left behind. The pension checks was a big issue for us in the past. We have now brought that down, and this is something we'll have to keep working on very hard.
Thank you.
Mr. Bazan.
My questioning of the minister talking about Vote 5A, and that was underfunded by $2.5 billion, as well as pensions being under by $2.2 billion. I believe the minister actually said that there's going to be zero lapsed funding. I'd like him to provide that information to committee. I'm looking at last year's, the 2017-2018 public accounts, page 407, where the column called lapse funding showed a lapse of $677 million.
Of what you're referring to in terms of the 2.6 billion and also the lapse, we have not only shown a demonstration of reducing our lapses, but in terms of we don't have that lapse funding. See if we want to go.
But it's actually called by the definition of the Government of Canada under
this
public
is not
account.
a point of order. This is debate.
No, but I asked for that information.
Fair enough.
He said zero.
You want to?
So I'm happy to answer those questions. $677 million is what we carried forward last year in Vote 1. That allows us to open the year. You can't carry forward zero. There is an expectation that we will have funds to open the books on day 1, April 1st. Last year, we did not spend about $2.2 billion of Vote 5. This year, we've got that down to about $1.3 billion. At this point in time in the year, we are working towards reducing it below $1 billion by March 31st. Some of that is efficiencies. We've saved about $700 million on projects. That's really good news. We've achieved and delivered the project for less money than we anticipated. That's in that 2.2 that you reference. The rest of it is projects that we are working to move. We're working with our colleagues at Treasury Board, PSBC and PCO to move money through the system and projects through the system more quickly. And we're looking at our internal processes, as I've said previously, to increase the speed with which smaller, less risky, less expensive projects can move through the defence system. The CFO, my Senior Associate Deputy Minister, and the Vice Chief of Defence Staff are running a program where they bring forward projects and move them through the system more quickly. They reduce the number of steps in the system and not reduce the oversight, but ensure that we don't let things sit for too long in the bureaucracy that is the national defence.
And I also want to say, this is from a previous point that we're talking about. When you don't have enough resources to be able to move those projects forward, this is what we're dealing from the past. And my question to you, Mr. Bazan, is when you're parliamentary secretary, right, when you got rid of all those people in procurement, right, did you look at the future of how to spend that money? And that's what we're dealing with now. So we are now not only trying to increase the spending more to money, and delivering for our people, we have to now build the right structure in place to be able to deliver on that. It's a very complex task that we're asking folks, and I just want to thank them for the work that they do on this. Plus the aspect in terms of the carryover. What was the carryover during at the time when you were the parliamentary secretary? How much money that went back that had to go to balance that the false budget that you want to do on the backs of the military? Thank you.
All right. Minister, thank you very much for your time. This is important funding that our military needs, and I also want to thank you for your service to Canada. I'm going to suspend so the minister can depart. Thank you, everyone, for sticking around to finish off the rest of this hour talking about Sup A. I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Spangeman for the first 7-minute question.
Remaining with us for the additional time. I wanted to circle back to the discussion that we had with Minister Sajjan on our mission to UN headquarters and the opportunity to engage with you in a conversation on the details of UN peacekeeping and peace support operations. Would you give the committee your view on the implications of the Secretary General's reforms, including the Action for Peace, the new peace support operations, the merger of the Department of Political Affairs with the Department of Peacekeeping Operations, and in the context of the estimates, the impact that will have for our thinking about peace operations as we go forward?
Thank you very much for the question. I'm happy to answer, and if the VCDS would like to weigh in,
Yes.
certainly welcome that. We welcome the reforms at the UN. The Chief of Defence Staff and I went to visit the UN in the spring, and I had quite a significant discussion about the reforms. And it is interesting that they are aligning operations and policy up as the two separate entities of peace support operations in order to facilitate getting troops on the ground, to move forward with operations, to make the process simpler. It's daunting to try and move an operation through the UN, and we're very supportive of what they're doing. We're very proud of the work that's being done in Mali. We were able to move from the go to on the ground very quickly. And so I think that's a testament to the Canadian Armed Forces' agility and willingness to deploy as required. Any reform within the UN that reduces the bureaucracy, reduces the time, and reduces the complexity is a positive thing from where we sit.
Okay.
Anything to
Well, just to add very briefly to what the Deputy Minister mentioned, I think you were aware, as part of our permanent mission in New York, we have a Brigadier General there that facilitates that planning, and this will pick up the pace once again, as the Deputy Minister noted, to allow us to do tighter planning cycles and better contingency planning. So I think it's quite positive.
Operationally, how would the merger of the political and peacekeeping operational unit at the UN reflect itself in the work that we do here with respect to the foreign policy questions and the defense questions? Is that line now becoming more fluid? Is there even greater interdisciplinarity, greater departmental collaboration, especially in those cases where people are expecting early and quick action? Many of us are getting emails from our constituents on the situation in Yemen, and I'm going to hopefully have time to ask you a bit more broadly about the Middle East. But this merger of political and peacekeeping ops at the UN, are there direct implications for how we structure ourselves here in Ottawa?
I actually think they're more reflecting our structure here. Anytime we speak to the UN, we are hand in glove with the Department of Foreign Affairs, Global Affairs Canada. We do nothing without the Foreign Affairs direction and the military, the Armed Forces policy team, and of course the foreign policy experts from Global Affairs. We commit and speak to the UN together. We're now speaking to the same people in the same room. Okay. So their structure reflects our structure.
Excellent. That's very good news. Thank you for putting that on the record. I'd like to go back to the question that I asked earlier on the allotment of $53.8 million to the Department of Foreign Affairs by DND, the transfer and the supplementaries, and ask you about, from a defense perspective now, your view of the Middle East as it currently stands and what evolutionary trajectories you see when we look at Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Libya, and the constellation of powers around that. How does that affect your thinking in terms of advanced planning for potential Canadian support of peace operations in the Middle East? And adjunct to that question, do you see an opportunity for us to be active not only in Mali, but potentially in other future missions, such as Yemen, if and when the time is right for that?
Well, of course, in the Department of National Defence, we work with Foreign Affairs on the foreign policy direction they would like the Canadian Armed Forces to take. It goes without saying that we are very concerned about the situation in the Middle East. Syria and Yemen of profound concern, and obviously the photos that are coming out of Yemen are disturbing Canadians from coast to coast to coast. We don't assert the direction that the Canadian Armed Forces should take in the operations. Of course, we await government direction, and are ready to respond as required.
I'd like to shift gears for a minute and ask you about the well-being of members of the armed forces and also our veterans. And at the introductory stage of this meeting, we made reference to the fact that we are entering into Veterans Week and that we are honoring the lives and service of our veterans. Can you tell us about the joint suicide prevention strategy of the armed forces? Just yesterday here on Parliament Hill, we unveiled the maquette of Lieutenant Colonel Sam Sharp. Injuries that are sustained in battle are not always visible. Can you tell us what the armed forces are doing on this very pressing issue of suicide prevention?
I'd be very pleased to ask the Commander of Military Personnel, General Lamar, to speak to the suicide prevention strategy. I'll preface it by saying it is joint with the Veterans Affairs Canada. It is a groundbreaking document where we combine operational response, policy, and science to try and understand the cultural tragedy that is suicide. We don't pretend that we have all the answers. What we are trying to do is understand, support, and prevent. But I'll turn it over to General Lamar.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. The Joint Suicide Prevention Strategy was issued a year ago. Since that time, the strategy has become a number of plans and concrete actions that are moving forward to help us deal with the situation. First of all, we have 37 medical clinics clear across Canada, 31 of which are equipped with their own mental health professionals. Some of them are too small for that. However, we also have a network of over 4,000 physicians, mental health specialists in all fields and aspects that are available to help our people specifically deal with that. On top of it, we partner up with various organizations, not only Veterans Affairs Canada, but outside organizations to specifically address how it is that we reduce the stigma towards seeking help when you're dealing with mental health. So these puts a really emphasis on how it is that we want to prevent, if you will, suicide. Training for our individuals, resilience training for all sorts of specialist trades that are perhaps more exposed to things, but first and foremost, making sure that care is available for the members and for their families in terms of referring them to the right authorities and the right support networks to assist them along the way.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. MP Vizan.
And just want to touch quickly, there's a new order for a new offshore patrol ship. My understanding from media, it's $800 million. Is that substantially more than the cost of the ones that are in production right now?
Thank you very much for the question. We're very pleased that the sixth ship was ordered for the Royal Canadian Navy. As you know,
I exercised the option that was in the original contract.
It is, and it is very good news. ADM Pat Finn will get into the details for you, but as you know, as we're building ships, the costs decline as we go down. There are market variables as we go down the line of ships, market variables that play a role, cost of steel as an example being a prime one. And so that cost is at this time an estimate, but Pat can give you the detail.
Thank you, sir, for the question. One of the things we're trying to do here through Ship 6 and beyond is the approach to the strategy. In this case, how do we take a more, I'll say, business approach to how we're building ships through the AOPS into the surface combatants? So to your question, the sixth ship is approximately $400 million, which is continuing to see in real dollars a reduction ship over ship over ship. Decision was made that we're actually going to extend the build period. So we're going to make a point of actually stretching out the overall program for 2 years so that we can actually maintain kind of workforce and continuity in the yard. Why is that? As we've kind of implemented the strategy on both coasts and other work that we've done, a huge cost driver for us is labor and what the industry calls green labor, which is getting a workforce up and running in the context of a shipyard. So there's $150 million that we've put in there, which is to willfully stretch out the work, but at a significant savings to maintain the workforce for surface combatants. Some of the analysis.
So just let me get this straight. The fifth ship coming out is estimated at $400 million?
So the fifth ship is more than 400. The sixth ship is approximately 400. So it is lower in cost, but we're stretching the whole program out by an extra 2 years.
But that's adding cost to it. And so if it's around $400 million for a ship, $800 million is going to be the total cost of the last ship. Why don't we just build two?
So it's actually, so we're just delivering the first ship, and we're moving to a drumbeat of a ship a year. And so actually it's drawing cost in ships 2, 3 through 6. The point is that in the analysis that we've done in not taking action, in the delay in surface combatants and the additional cost of the green labor would be sort of $750 million to $1 billion. So we are actually trying to be much more rational in our strategy, much more rational in how we bring in, how we use the industry. The additional $250 million does not go to the yard, so we're extending, so there's project costs and other things. There's contingencies and other things we're setting aside, economic price adjustments around steel, what could happen to labor costs, so we actually create a reserve, which is the normal practice on what we do. And for us, always, the $800 million is the overall project versus the contract.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Operation Impact. When we were working alongside the Kurdish Peshmerga, we had bought up some weapons that were going to be transferred to the Kurds about 1.5 years ago. Included things like anti-tank missiles, sniper rifles, mortar systems, rocket-propelled grenades. Whatever happened to that stock of weapons? They were stored in Jordan and in Montreal. Were they ever repurposed, or are they still collecting dust?
They have not been repurposed, to my knowledge.
Okay. So, is there any money in the budget here to continue to work with and train the Peshmerga in dealing with ISIS and security in the region under Operation Impact?
Thank you for the question. To specifically answer that question, I'm not aware of anything in that regard. The money that's allocated for it is towards the key contributions of the aircraft, the Polaris, the Hercules, and the Griffin, the All Source Intelligence Center, the Roll Tool Hospital, the engineers, the arms instructors, and the Special Operations Task Force. So it's to the overall mission contribution thus far.
Okay. Thank you, General. When you look at Operation Unifire, and General Winnick, you're very familiar, of course, as a proud Ukrainian Canadian, as I am. The Ukrainians have been asking for lethal weapons, and we do have some that have been purchased that are making their way to Ukraine. Is there any thought process of helping Ukraine deal with the heavy tanks that are in Donbass, the mortars firing that they're continually encountering on a daily basis? Is there more that Canada can do to provide them with that kinetic capability to defend their territory?
Thus far, the money that's allocated to the mission, as you're aware, is towards collective combat training, leadership training, and the training to actually engage in that area. We've contributed over $16 million, I think you're aware, in non-lethal military equipment up to this point, which more to be delivered by the end of March 2019. But I can assure you, I just spoke to the Deputy Minister of Ukrainian Defense about 2 weeks ago, and he was extremely pleased with the training they were getting. He was saying that was having a marked impact on their struggle at this time.
Thanks, and we're very proud of our troops that have been over there doing training that has helped save lives for sure. One of the things that we're dealing with in Op Unifier, of course, is the Russian cyber warfare, the misinformation campaigns, the entire, hybrid war that they are conducting in Donbass and Crimea. Are we providing any assistance in dealing with misinformation and cyber warfare, and what are we able to learn from it ourselves as Russia increases its activities in Donbass?
I think we'll ask the Chief of CSE to respond.
So CSE works very closely with the Canadian military and supporting their missions abroad. We are uniquely placed with a mandate that looks at monitoring foreign threats as well as the cybersecurity advice and guidance. So in that sense, we are very much focused on looking at what are the risks and threats to the mission, and we provide that advice and guidance to the Canadian Armed Forces.
Thank you.
Thank you. MP Garrison.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. One of the items in the supplementary estimate deals with assessment, management, and remediation of contaminated sites. And so my question is, does this include removal of asbestos from Canadian Forces bases, and what progress is being made? I know we've had some severe problems at CFB Esquimalt with asbestos in some of the older buildings and especially classroom buildings. So is this item, I know it extends to across departments, but is this item including removal of asbestos in buildings on bases, or is that covered somewhere else?
I believe it's covered somewhere else, but we have the ADM of infrastructure here to respond to your questions.
Thank
you. It does not include asbestos removal. We have a multi-pronged strategy in place to deal with asbestos that consists primarily of when it's stable and it's sealed off, we don't like to mess with it if we can help it, and that's a fairly standard industry practice. But we would deal with that on an as-required basis mostly through our maintenance and repair budgets at that local level.
So budgets wouldn't be a major obstacle in dealing with asbestos? It'd be a question of assessing specific hazards and seeing if they need remediation?
Yeah, we always take a health and safety approach, obviously, first and foremost, and funding would not be an issue, given that we don't like, as I said, we don't like to mess with it if we don't have to. Yeah.
Great, thanks. My colleague, Mr. Fisher, raised the question of trucks, and he asked some of the questions I was going to ask about trucks. And certainly I know that people in Canadian Forces are quite happy to have new logistics trucks being delivered, and the standard jokes hopefully will go to the past. Is this a military parade or is this a museum parade? So let's hope we get beyond that. Can you tell me something about where these trucks are being produced in the state of contracts? I understand it's been phased because there are lots of trucks needed, and I believe we're getting close to finishing a phase, and will there be new contract competitions for more trucks?
Thank you, sir, for the question. So the specific trucks we're talking about, the medium support vehicle system, as you indicate, this is the last of the phases. We did a military off-the-shelf variant some years ago, fully delivered for domestic operations. This particular variant coming out of Mac Defense, but the final work and delivery is done in a company called Prévost in Quebec. You may recognize from buses and other things that they do. This particular variant is an expeditionary vehicle, so it can have an armored cab, and all the vehicles have modules that go on the back, so it's fairly complex in the context of vehicles, many variants from dental labs to medical labs to workshops to transportation. So a fairly complex system, and as you indicate, this is the fourth phase. We're well into delivery now, about 1,500 vehicles to come in the next 18 months or so. We will then move on to some other things, and there's a number of vehicles to say that are more traditional commercial pattern vehicles you would recognize. We bought that on an ongoing basis. In fact, there's some money in the supplementary estimates that's given to Army, Navy, Air Force, and others to do recapitalization of vehicles. We have a very large undertaking with my colleagues in infrastructure and environment on greening that commercial pattern vehicles. But the next big one will be a competition for what's called the logistics vehicle modernization. And these speak to, again, much more of the older trucks. So our priority has been all the combat vehicles, so light armored vehicles, tactical armored patrol vehicles, Leopards 2. We've now done these medium support vehicles and moving into the logistics vehicle modernization. It will be undertaking of approximately $2 billion we're looking at to do both heavy vehicles, so you can imagine moving tanks around, the kind of vehicles you need, but all the way down to some of the vehicles you'd recognize that we've had for very long, and as you indicate, a number of them are overdue for replacement. And so through Strong Secure Engage, we have a drumbeat now to go through the rest of those, sir.
And so will those be competed as a single large contract, or will they be separate contracts for different vehicles within that range?
So the specific project for logistics vehicle modernization, we've looked at a couple of options and we've landed on one competition. It could beget a number of separate contracts though, but to look at a fleet of them. Right now, we're about to enter what we call the definition phase, where we'll have more engagement with industry. And likely in some of our other ones where we've done quite successful, so pre-qualify a series of quite capable companies that deliver this with the usual offset policy, so the industrial technological benefits will apply. So whatever is not done in Canada per value will have to be equivalent amount of work found here, and other work will be done as well, sir.
And would companies like General Dynamics, who are producing the labs for export to Saudi Arabia, would they be potential bidders on these kinds of contracts?
Really, it's up to them, I would say. So we're working with the General Dynamics Land System. They're also doing work for us. They are updating the last of our light armored vehicles. We've advanced a fair bit of that work through next year, some in-service support contracts. It is really up to them what they want to do, whether it's the land, the plant in London or otherwise, but absolutely this would be kind of open to people who produce those type of vehicles. So it would be up to them to determine, what role they might want to play in this, sir.
So will this contract be different than some of the other procurements, say for ships, where you kind of establish qualified bidders? This will be a more open competition?
Well, so for ships, competition was done for the shipyards that resulted in the umbrella agreements, as you know. If you look at the model we're doing for future fighters, I think the big thing is we want to make sure we establish value for money and have partners who can really deliver this in time and at a reasonable price. So we will go out and have done, for example, in fighters and other things, what we call an invitation to qualify. Pretty straightforward. We would likely do something similar. So it's completely open. If you can reach the benchmark of qualification, you'd be in that pool. We do that so that we can really have a detailed dialogue with the companies that are really close in this line of work.
Great, thanks. It's my hope that the contract with Saudi Arabia will be cancelled, and there's a need to make sure there's work available that would replace those if we lost that. So thank you for that answer.
Thank you. MP Fisher.
Mr. Chair, and thanks folks for sticking around and putting up with us for another hour. I wondered if the Deputy Minister could elaborate on comments made earlier regarding the Team Canada flight and the Department of National Defence's Public Affairs. There was a lot of back and forth when the Minister was here, and I didn't really get a clear answer.
Thank you very much for the question, and I'm pleased to answer it. The Team Canada situation is very much regrettable, but I would like to get on the record, and I appreciate the chance to do so, that there was no attempt to mislead by my ADM of Public Affairs, Chris Henderson, or by the Minister's spokesperson, Bern Furlong. Information was released as it became available. 2 investigations have been done that revealed more information, and we ensured that that was released, and in fact the investigations have been made public, and the Chief of Defence Staff responded formally to it. We are now doing an end-to-end review by the ADM of Review Services to look at just what the process is for these kinds of flights when the Armed Forces host or take people overseas on Armed Forces aircraft to take part in this kind of a event. The inference that there was an attempt to mislead is unfortunate, but it is not true. Information became available. We corrected the record. We answered all the questions that were asked. And the information came out in stages. There's absolutely no doubt. But that's because information became... We knew what we knew when we knew it, and we made it public.
Right. Thank you for that. I think another member may have touched on the NATO money, the $24.1 million for NATO. And I wonder if maybe you could just elaborate a little bit on that. Is it operational funding? Tell me exactly how that is going to be spent. As a member of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, I'm interested in our relationship in that regard.
We have an expert on NATO funding in our CFO, and so I'll ask him to answer this question.
I was hoping he'd get to speak.
Thank you very much for your question, sir. So just to explain a bit like the NATO funding, we have 3 different budgets with NATO. So we contribute normally approximately $140 million a year as part of our contribution. So we are the 6th contributor in the 29 countries in NATO. NATO, they have a different fiscal year. So their fiscal year is September to August. Our fiscal year is from April to March. So it happens once in a while that they have invoices that we plan to spend in our fiscal year that they are delayed and it occurs in the fiscal year after. This is the case for that $24 million. So it was for different infrastructure projects in NATO. The first one was what they call the NATO Common Structure Entities and a Program. So they had $1.5 million there. And there was also a project by Norway that finally it was delayed a bit, and the invoice came to NATO a bit later. So, and that was another small amount that we had to pay there. And they had ongoing projects for $20.5 million. So all that together is that $24 million. So this year we have still the $140 million plus the 24 that we carried forward from last year. Right. We reprofiled it this year. So this year for NATO we have $164 million.
Okay. Thank you. Within Strong, Secure and Engaged, there's a program, Innovation for Defense Excellence and Security. I'm wondering if you could give me an update, to the Deputy Minister perhaps, on where we are today in this program. The subs include $2.4 million for funding for the program. Can you maybe elaborate on what that's used for and maybe where we are in rolling that program out?
Thank you. Ideas is one of our shining stars of Strong, Secure and Engaged, and we're very proud of it. It has taken off in a way that none of us could have imagined from its inception. So what we're using the money for is to fund the challenges that have already been announced. It's $1.6 billion over 20 years. It's $2.5 million this year to fund the competitive projects. And the kinds of things we're looking at are improving gender diversity, a study to help us do that. University of Waterloo is doing it. The University of Ottawa is looking at a multi-stage approach to addressing sex disparities and musculoskeletal injuries in military operators. And so we go from the big to the very specific in the IDEAS program. We've got an AI project on smart recruiting using deep learning. And so the money requested this year in SUPSB is to fund those challenges. We have 4 times a year we put challenges out, and we're overwhelmed by the response to them. So it is a huge success.
So when you get that, how do you let the success of those projects inform your future decisions?
So the L1s, so the ADM level, 3-star generals and admirals, and the ADMs in the department put forward challenges for problems they need solved. So it is either a study to help inform a next step in something, or it is a challenge to help procurement. We are doing these with very specific end goals, and it just depends on the nature of what the challenge is. ADM Finn would use a challenge to perhaps, or ADM Pat Finn in ADM material would use a challenge to help him procure so he can buy and try something. And it allows us to test a product or several products and decide which one we're going to procure. Instead of saying we need a specific boot, we see which boot works. Some of them, which are being run by the Chief Military Personnel through the S&T program, are to help inform how we recruit, how we retain, how we improve living conditions for members of the armed forces. So every challenge has an end goal. It just depends on the nature of the challenge.
Okay, so just following up on that, maybe I'll go to Pat for a quick second then. When you have, so this is new, this is very new, and this is kind of groundbreaking stuff, and I think this is really unique. And perhaps it's not, perhaps you know whether this is unique in the world or not, but so with this program, have you gone far enough yet in the rollout to be able to put this on the street, so to say?
We have not gone that far yet, so we're sort of the initial stages, and the whole point is to really start at the kind of the low level and say, here is the problem. A classic we put out recently, it's gas masks with facial hair. Sounds simple, but it has actually been a problem for a long time, such that operationally we don't allow that. And as the minister often talks about, as far as recruiting more people, is to be able to do something like that. We've just started it, we've put it out, we may be some years away. It is exciting.
Very exciting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Given the time we have left, I can give the floor to MP Derowitz to do a quick question, a couple questions, maybe 4 or 5 minutes, and then she had a notice of motion she wanted to bring. I have an undertaking to allow her to do that, so I'm going to give the floor to her, and then we need a couple minutes administratively to vote. So the last question will go to you, MP Derowitz.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I do want to give notice of motion, and I'd like to read it into the record if that's okay, that the committee amended study and the motion adopted by the committee on Tuesday, September 18, 2018, on diversity within the Canadian Armed Forces had no fewer than 4 meetings to study the issue of extremist and racist attitudes and beliefs within the Canadian Armed Forces, their impact on recruitment, morale, operational effectiveness, and that the committee report its findings to the House.
Okay, and the floor is yours for the remainder of your time.
Thank you so much. One of the topics that is quite au jour, topic of the day, is cybersecurity. And it's something that I know is becoming much more part of our common discourse. And so my question is, hold on, I want to make sure that I've read it properly. I believe that we have the Communications Security Establishment has asked for more funding as part of the supplementary estimates. So can you tell me what role the CSE is going to play in the Center for Cybersecurity that was announced last month, but also in general, how it is that we're trying to beef up our cybersecurity operations?
Thank you. Shelley?
Thank you for your question. The cybersecurity, the center, the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, is actually, as I mentioned before, the amalgamation of all of the operational expertise from across the government into a central branch. And that branch actually reports inside CSE. So we have what used to be our IT security branch is now been augmented, and we'll have about 750 people who are focused on being and promoting what the Cyber Centre can deliver for Canadians. There are many foundations that exist. We've been working on protecting Canadians' information for 70 years, but as you know, the challenges are many in terms of the technological changes that are before us, as well as the threats that are evolving. So the focus of the Cyber Centre will be to continue to provide advice and guidance and services to raise Canada's cybersecurity bar for Canadians all the way through to critical infrastructure owners and operators. It'll also be to raise awareness. We just finished a month-long cybersecurity awareness campaign, which included everything from being aware of what you're buying, what kind of apps you're loading onto your phones, all the way through to a fake news panel so that people could start to appreciate a little bit more how to be discriminating about the sources of information that you're looking at ingesting, whether that's in the democratic institution space and elections, or whether it's just your normal day-to-day business. And that was held, one for adults and also one for children. So there's a big corporate social outreach program that is really looking at how to raise the technical quotient and the cybersecurity quotient amongst Canadians. We do monitor all of the Government of Canada websites with our own censoring system, so we're able to respond very quickly when there are incidents and events. And we also are taking some of the tools that we're developing in-house based on the expertise that we have and putting them out there for the public. So we recently released something called Assembly Line, which has been picked up thousands of times around the world. It's open source software now. Banks in Europe are using it as some of their main lines of defense. So we really are working on trying to make Canada a more cybersecure, more robust and resilient environment. And there is a bill that is before Parliament now that it's in the Senate now for second reading, C-59, which would add some new authorities to CSE's mandate to allow them to take action if we see activities.
Great, thank you. How much time do I have left, please?
Mr. Chair, could I just add a little bit to that question from the military capability side? Shelley has spoken about the civilian capability, but it's quite an exciting time in the Canadian Armed Forces right now. We've actually set up a cyber operator occupation, which is huge, and we're in the process of filling that right now with individuals who will work very closely with CSE. So that fusion and that cooperation is developing, and as I said, it's a new occupation that we're attracting a lot of talent right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That essentially burns up the rest of our time, and we're going to have a minute or two here to vote on the estimates. Anybody want to?
You want me to move the motion? Move the estimates?
No.
Oh.
I just heard some rumblings over there. Somebody want to record a vote. If that's the case,
Yes,
now's the
record a
time.
vote. Yes.
You want to record a vote?
Yes.
Please record the vote. What's that? Well, shall vote 1A under Communications Security Establishment carry.
Mr. Horwitz?
Yes.
Mr. Fisher? Mr. Johari?
Yes.
Mr. Robillard? Yes. Mr. Spangaman? Yes. Mr. Bazan? Ms. Gallant?
Yes. Communication security stuff, yes.
Mr. Martel?
Yes.
Mr. Garrison?
It's carried. Carried. Shall vote 1A under Department of National Defense carry.
Mr. Mr. Horwitz? Yes. Mr. Fisher? Yes. Mr. Johari?
Yes.
Mr. Robillard? Mr. Spangeman? Mr. Bazan?
No.
Ms. Gallant? Monsieur Martel? Mr. Garrison?
Shall vote 5A under Department of National Defense carry.
Mr. Horwitz? Mr. Fisher? Mr. Johari?
Yes.
Mr. Robillard? Mr. Spangeman? Mr. Bazan? Ms. Gallant? Monsieur Martel? Mr. Garrison?
It's carried. Shall vote 10A under Department of National Defense carry.
Mr. Horwitz? Mr. Fisher? Mr. Johari?
Yes.
Mr. Robillard? Mr. Spangeman? Mr. Bazan? Ms. Gallant? Monsieur Martel? Mr. Garrison?
Carried. Shall vote 20A under Department of National Defense carry.
Yes.
Ms. Horwitz?
Yes again?
Mr. Fisher? Mr. Johari?
Yes.
Monsieur Robillard? Mr. Spangeman? Mr. Bazan? Ms. Gallant? Monsieur Martel? Mr. Garrison?
Carried. Shall the chair report votes 1A under Communications Security Establishment, votes 1A, 5A, 10A, and 20A under Department of National Defense to the House?
Mr. Horwitz? Mr. Fisher? Yes. Mr. Johari?
Yes.
Monsieur Robillard? Mr. Spangeman? Mr. Bazan? Ms. Gallant? Monsieur Martel? Mr. Garrison?
Carried. Thank you all for your time today, and thank you all for your service to Canada. Adjourned.